Charles, you are the wind beneath my wings.
Oh, thank you, darling.
Oh, thank you. I am not the technical one here.
I know.
I freely admit that. You know, we come up with these ideas and you make them happen. Like, how did this come about?
Believe it or not, it's all because of Anchor. Anchor has the tools. It lets me record, edit, and distribute right from the computer. Sometimes I do it from my phone. It's just as easy either way.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're on like dozens of platforms, though.
It's true. Anchor makes it easy to distribute our podcast on platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcast, and dozens more. It's everything we need, and it's all in one place. And you'll love this part. It's all completely free.
Oh, thank God.
Right? I use Anchor for pretty much every aspect of getting our show out there and into the listeners' ears.
That's amazing.
It is. And if you, dear listeners, want to get into the podcasting game, you just need to download the Anchor app or go to Anchor.fm to get started.
Maybe Anchor's the wind beneath my wings.
Hey!
Coming to you on location at the rehearsal of a very special new play, welcome to the first remote episode of Full Circle, the podcast. I'm your host, Martha Madrigal.
And I'm your host, Charles Tyson Jr. It's 8 a.m. on a Monday morning. Mr. Wright, the only openly queer teacher, is not in the building. As rumors fly and students begin to question each other and the adults around them, the school is thrown into turmoil.
LGBTQuiet is a one-act play that follows a group of students as they navigate claiming their personal identities in the culture war of their school.
This show will explore identity, self-expression, and wanting to be seen and heard in an environment that is suppressing you in the name of protection.
Taking inspiration from the discourse surrounding the Don't Say Gay bill, Shadow Company presents a drama centered on the failure of schools to act in the best interests of their students.
A performing arts company made up of high school students, Shadow Company members learn about all aspects of the theater making process, including on and off stage roles.
With an ensemble-based methodology, they work with a director, professional artists, and industry leaders to build their skills as artists, collaborators, leaders, and citizens.
Shadow Company is part of Yes and Collaborative Arts. Executive Director of Yes and, Chris Herman, invited us to talk with these amazing young people and the teachers working with them.
LGBTQuiet is a part of the 2022 Philadelphia Fringe Festival and will be performed at the Venice Island Performing Arts Center in the Manayunk section of Philadelphia, September 9, 10, and 11. Charles, first, tell me about you and Chris.
Chris and I go way back. I was teaching at a studio in Havertown, and she was one of the teachers. And I ultimately ended up pulling her into my dance company, Underground Dance Works. She danced for me for about 2-3 seasons. Mm-hmm. And then the studio started a collective called the Indigenous Pitch Dance Collective, because all the faculty, we had our own dance companies, or were in each other's dance companies. And we got together, and our mission was to go where kids are suffering from natural disaster, economic disaster, things like that, and teach them a week-long free dance camp, which is basically just like time to like get out of your head and get into your body. And we went to New Orleans for several years. We went to all around Philadelphia, and Chris quickly became the executive director of that organization.
Oh, wow.
And she kept us all in line and kept all our itineraries together. So it's no surprise to me when I found out that she was the executive director of this organization, because it's right in her wheelhouse, the arts and arts administration. That's Chris all over.
Oh, wow. Wow. And, you know, it was such an incredible email, I think it was, that you know, she sent you and said, hey, this might be something interesting for the podcast.
And it definitely was.
It definitely was. And the more that I read about Yes and, And they work with children from all over the city and all different backgrounds, really kind of immersing them in the arts and participating in the arts. And it, I think culminates in Shadow Company, where, these high school age students, really take on everything from script writing to production to, acting in their own play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's valuable skills because so many times you have people that are only used to being on one side of the table, but when you have kids growing up with the knowledge of both sides, it's so helpful when they go to different environments.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out that this is a student-run project. It's a student-driven project. This is not a play that they were handed.
Right.
This is work that they really chose to talk about and put to the stage. So without further ado, I talked with these incredible teens while you ran sound, and the kids are definitely all right. So welcome to the future.
Indeed.
So the idea is, I'm really interested in this program, and I'm sure that our listeners will be too. So if you would tell me who you are and a little bit about either how you came to Shadow, what your role has been in the play. Let's get started there.
Well, my name is Drew. I use he, him pronouns, and how I got involved in Shadow was actually a pretty funny story. So during high school, actually I'm still in high school.
Earlier in high school,
I was like, dang, maybe I don't want to do track. Maybe I want to try theater. It's like, but dang, I haven't done theater in a while because I have only done one musical back in 5th grade. I was like, so I went up and asked my art teacher. I was like, Mr. Art Teacher, sir, Mr. Art Teacher, sir, I need something to help me prepare. It's like, well, there's this camp called Yes and Collaborative Arts that I've sent my sons to. Maybe you'd like it, and maybe there's programs for you. So I got all the information. I sent it to my mom, and she was like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead, honey." I was like, "Okay." So, and then July rolls around. I introduced myself, and I was like, "Yeah." And I wasn't even intending to do the play either, and I just thought it was gonna be a 2-week intensive teaching me the basics of theater. But I ended up getting involved with a play that is like, it has definitely been kind of therapeutic in a way, especially since my character Bryce, as a black man as a black teenager who is growing up in a more intolerant society, that has been therapeutic in many ways.
That's awesome.
Hi, I'm Zivia, I use they, them pronouns. I am currently a rising senior in high school. This show is for Shadow, which is the high school part of Yes And. I've been doing Yes And since I was in 5th grade. I actually found it through school because my teachers took the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. It was a very small school to see a production that Yes And was doing, and I was like, I'm gonna be in that next year, and I was.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Elias. I use they, them pronouns. I've been in Yes And my entire life. Yeah. And basically the role that I play in the show is like just this dude. Like, he's a stud. And I think it's really funny to like play like this super straight person, and I can just like do whatever I want, and it's really fun. Yeah.
Are you Red? Is that the character?
Different character. I'm Trace. I'm Red's best friend.
Ah, okay. Okay. So you're saying is it comfortable or uncomfortable to do the...
Well, it's a little bit of both. I think it is, if I lean into like the humor aspect of it, it's like, oh yeah, I could just manspread as far as I can, and let's see where this takes us. And yeah, and that's basically how I got the idea for the character.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
My name is Caleb. I use he, him pronouns. My name is Caleb. I use he, him pronouns. I came to Yes and last summer. My mom was like, hey, there's this cool camp you should do. I was like, okay. And then I did it. And it was pretty cool. So I came back. Similar to Drew, I also thought it was just like a 2-week thing. And then they were like, there's going to be a show and we're going to come rehearsals for the rest of summer. I was like, what? But yeah, I think it was really good. So I'm excited to do another one. I play Red. He's an asshole. But it's kind of fun to just like be mean, because I don't usually like being mean, but like I don't know, sometimes it's fun to do that and there's no consequences because I'm not actually hurting anyone's feelings, because these are not real characters.
Have you done any of the tough scenes yet where you're like apologizing to everyone afterwards? Like, sorry, I don't know.
We've worked a little bit on those scenes, and it's kind of hard, but I think we're getting it.
Yeah, it's the magic of theater. It really is. Getting to explore.
Hi, my name is Shreese. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a teacher here. This is my second year. I found Yes and when I was looking for a job. And I went, an organization that does collaborative theater and focuses on making theater accessible. Hey, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And then they hired me, so that's cool.
Now, do you work, mostly with high school kids?
I do.
The high school group or some of everyone?
I do all the ages.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yep.
My name's B. I use they, them pronouns. I've been with Yes and like 8 or 9 years. I'm a graduated senior, so this is my 5th summer with Shadow, and I'm assistant directing the show.
That's awesome.
My name's Liam. I use he, him pronouns. I think I've been here 9 or 10 years. I don't know. We're the same age, me and B. I would be graduating. I went to college a year early, so I'm not part of this show in terms of like, well, I did talk about the plot and when they were writing it, but I didn't write it, not acting in it, but I do work at Yes and I did graduate from Shadow this year.
So could we call you a consultant, Liam?
Yes. For a very small fee, my consulting services. Yeah.
I just want to tell you all, like, I read through it, and sometimes we get to read scripts, right? So we have a friend who's a publicist, and he'll say, I've got this new screenwriter, and will you talk to them? And the last time it happened, it was a straight dude, God bless him, who wrote a lesbian love story. Badly. Oh, so badly. And I said, we're going to have to read that first. And we're really going to have to kind of do a gut check. And he's like, oh yeah. And he'd love feedback. And I'm like, all right. And we got the script and we both read it and we just looked at each other and I'm like, I didn't even know how to give notes. Like, dude, out of your depth. And I'm like, who says that? And I found myself doing that so often. I didn't find that with the script. All the way through, I felt like it resonated. I did. I felt like, yeah, okay, this is just queer life. This is just, friends talking and confronting things, but none of it rang hollow. So I just want you to know that, because I know everyone had input, and I've read a lot of scripts, and I really like this one. Good job.
Hey, y'all. My name is Mia. I use she, her pronouns right now. I am a movement director on this show, and in Philly I'm a performer and theater educator. And I've been with, I believe this is my 4th summer with Yes and. something like that. Yeah, we've agreed we don't do math in the summer, so I'm going to leave it there.
No math.
Hi, my name is Aubrey. I use she, her pronouns. I play Esper in the show. And I'm also an arising senior like a lot of us here. And I've been with Yes And for about 7 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Sarah. I use she, her pronouns. I am also a rising senior, and I have been with Yes And since I was in kindergarten.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I've been doing shadow for the past 4 years, and other ways I've participated in shadow besides like performing is also choreographing.
Oh, wow.
Choreographing. Yeah. And I'm playing Jackson and Orange, aka motivational speaker number 2.
Who came up with that? Who was that? Like just y'all, or because the orange and the apple, it's gold. It's gold. I mean, as bizarre as it's sort of, I can see it happening. I can really see that happening. Yeah, right. It's like, oh my God. Yeah, like I was cringing while I was reading it. So good job. Good job. Is that a hard, like, or you just embrace it? Just like do it.
It's just funny. I feel like it's like the perfect part for me.
Good.
I don't
Okay.
know, just like fake enthusiasm.
Okay.
It's just super fun to do it with Tora.
Oh. Okay.
And,
Are you the orange or the apple? Okay.
I just got the part like a week ago.
All right.
Yeah, but it's been super fun.
Yeah. Over the top. Be committed. Because I can just see it. Make everyone hate you. That's my best advice for that. Like.
Hey, I'm Tora. I use they, them pronouns. I'm motivational speaker 1, the apple. And I'm Isabella. And I'm a rising freshman. So
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I haven't even experienced high school yet. Fun. Yeah. Yeah.
So you will be starting your freshman year in September?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't been tainted yet.
All right. It's summer. We don't have to. You have time.
Hi, my name is Alice. I use any pronouns. I don't really care how people refer to me. I will be playing Candace in this performance, and I just started being with Yes And this year. This is my first summer here. So far, I love it. Probably the best theater company I've ever been with because, I've been dancing my whole life and like kind of movement acting, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And I've always wanted to lean into more theater, and I've tried all these summer camps. I won't mention where, but I've done these summer camps, I've done these Saturday classes, and none of them really felt like I was learning something. It just felt super childish, and I wasn't being pushed. And here, I'm being pushed, and I love it. It's great. So, thank you.
Great. Speaking of being pushed.
My name is Gavin. I use he, him pronouns. I am program director of Shadow. I've been with Yes And I think 6 summers now. It's about 6, maybe 6.5-ish years.
Okay.
And how I found them, similar to Sharice. Needed a job. And they hired me as a teacher. And I remember in the interview just remembering, pretty sure it was Chris, Brooke, and Michael were all in the room. And they were really warm and they were really nice. And they just seemed like they cared about me as a person. And so I stuck around.
Nice. This is great. Working with this material because it's really real and it's really contemporary. Yeah, you've got a job, huh? Directing that.
It's a tough job that I have. But I will say that these group of teens make it worthwhile. I think they learn from me and I learn from them. They push me and I also push them.
Okay.
So it's a relationship that goes both ways, and I think we both get something out of this process together. You know,
that's awesome. That's awesome. Oh yeah, there is Chris. Hey Chris, you brought us here.
Good. So I'm Chris. I use she/her pronouns, and I'm the executive director of Yes And. I've been around Yes And. This is my 16th year.
Wow.
So I taught a lot of these little ones when they were in kindergarten, probably my first or second summer. And Shadow has always been, for me, kind of the like culmination of what we are trying to get our kids to and through, and bring new kids into. You know, these are the kids who will be going off into the world and taking the values that they've found and created and learned here. And so it's really fun to see the realization of that work through many years, and then see where they go off to. And they don't go far. They come back and visit. But
nice.
Yeah, but it's
nice.
Really fun.
Yeah, I wonder how many of you all are thinking about theater, like always doing theater in some way or another. Do you lean more toward it? Yeah. Well, because I think once you've participated, and you know, it's hard to get rid of. Right? Does anybody want to talk more about that? Alice, please.
Hello, it's me again. Yeah, you know, I've always I've danced, and there's a lot of acting and dancing, which not a lot of people realize. So that's where I kind of fell in love with it. And musical theater has always been super special to me. It's always like my number one interest. And my whole life, I've always just been like, I want to be an actor up there. I want to be speaking on that stage. I want to be there, or on a show or on a movie or anything. And, you know, again, with like the theater camps I've been to, not a lot of those kind of met those needs of needing to learn. I want to learn what it is to be an actor. And coming here, you know, it was literally like my mom was like, you have a week of doing nothing this summer. Do you want to do like a camp? And I was like, why not? She found this camp. I was like, okay, sign me up. It's fine. I didn't think much of it. And being here, I just fell in love with theater even more. And it's just great. And I feel like I'm going to stick with that because I love it. You know, even if I'm new at it and maybe not the best actor ever, I still want to improve, and I'm here to improve.
Who feels like, oh, yes, Liam. Oh, please do. Just do it with a microphone.
Yeah, I was going to talk about Yes And's theater because, like, you were saying, like, it feels like you learn stuff. Like, in my experience, I didn't feel like I was learning things until I went to college, and I started, like, a theater class there. And it was, like, the first year theater class, Acting 1, Viewpoints. And I showed up, and I was like, wow, I won't know what's going on. It's a college theater class. And then I realized, like, everything I had done the whole, like, year summers at camp had just been viewpoints already. And they were like, take a walk around the room. And I was like, I'm on it. I'm walking. I'm going around the room. And everyone else was like, what do you mean walk around the room? And I was like, I know what this means. And then they were like, do a mirroring exercise. And I was like, I've been doing this for years.
Right.
And so I think for me, like, the magic of, like, learning acting at Yes And is, like, it didn't feel hard or like a class. It just was, like, super informative. And even though it wasn't like, here's the specific, like, lexicon of what all these acting things mean. It was like, you learn how to do it, and then actually, like, literally going out into the world and doing, like, real acting, real places, quote unquote. It's, like, so easy because you kind of already know so much.
I've been doing this.
Yeah, because you've been doing it in, like, a really fun way.
Right, and I was learning the whole time. Right. Does anybody want to talk about, so, you know, I don't want to give away the plot or any of that, but anybody have a sense of what the takeaway is of this play, or what you hope? You know, your families are going to come see it, your friends. What do you think the takeaway is? Sarah?
I think the takeaway for me when I was coming up with ideas for, like, you know, what this show should be about, is I kind of had this like frustration from a hard school year that I had last school year, where I felt like there were situations within the school where the teachers weren't taking us seriously, and they weren't really explaining the situations that were happening to us.
Right.
And they were just kind of like assuming we would be okay with the really bad things that were going on in our community that were like disproportionately affecting minorities. And they kind of like skated around what was happening. They were like, there was a situation that happened in our community, and it was really bad. We're not going to tell you what it is, and we're going to keep you in the dark, but something happened. And it's like, we're high schoolers. We want to know what's going on.
Right.
Like, just, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think that's kind of where the whole like fruit assembly thing sort of stemmed from, because at my school, I feel like I've seen assemblies that were just like that. And I think the takeaway from this show that I hope people get from this is take us seriously. Like, we deserve to know what's going on so we can, and also like we have power, and we're more powerful than you think we are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. Anyone else want to? Elias, please.
I think that the takeaway, or one of them, could be, don't underestimate us. Like, we have a voice, and this is the way that we're going to use our voice, is through theater, and we're going to make you uncomfortable, and you have to deal with that. And it's going to be fun. Yeah.
Oh, I think it is. No, I definitely think it is.
Yeah, that's all.
You know, here's something I think is true of theater, and anyone comment, anyone. But, you know, and I think it's true of music. We've come to this place, right, where a lot of dialogue is dead. So is irony, by the way. But, you know, where everyone's kind of going like this and trying to be right rather than get to what is right. And that's where we are. Politically, that's where we are. And it's not just here. I think the arts, I know dance, I know music, but I also think theater can break that down a little bit. Sometimes a lot, where people, you know, we just interviewed Chris Matthews, who's an amazing, amazing folk singer. But she's also a black lesbian. You will come to know those two things are not normally anywhere near each other. So most of her audiences are white. And yet she's singing songs about Black Lives Matter. She's got them singing along in harmony, saying their names. How long is that song? 6 minutes? It's the longest song on her last CD because it's saying names. But she said, and yet, you know, I see the fights that exist, and yet music cuts through that, and I connect with my audiences, and incredible things happen. I think the same thing can happen with theater. I do. You know, it's something about the watching, something about the experience of theater, or the experience of live theater, where it's not exactly a dialogue. So, yeah, maybe they will be uncomfortable, but I think art can do what words sometimes can't, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Zivia.
Yes, please.
So I play August, and one thing I really resonate with is at one point another character asks him, "How did you know you were queer?" And his response is, "I don't know. I'm just trying to figure it out." This is like, it's more or less, I know that this is true about myself, and I'm going to figure out what that means.
Okay.
And there's a lot about, I am non-binary, and there's a lot about August where I'm like, I don't share this experience, but that is one which I definitely share of. I don't really know what's happening, but I'm not going to figure myself out without stepping outside of this a little bit and being like, okay, I'm this. Let's see what it feels like to be this. And so I guess that's kind of one thing I want people to take away of like, if you don't know, you can still claim things and you can still experiment. You don't have to know.
Right. Right. You know, and that's important for people of all ages. All ages. Because everybody doesn't figure it out by the time they're 16 or 18 or 25 or even 50. It can take a little bit longer. It can. Not just to know who you are, but to be able to speak it. You know, and say, here's my truth. Here's who I am. Here's what I know about me. And I'm ready to share that with you. Liam.
Yeah, I think in terms of like experiencing things and figuring out who you are, theater's like really good for that because it's like, I think it's like this Greek term. It's like pathemathos. I don't know. I don't speak Greek, but
Okay.
it's like, it's like experiencing or learning through suffering. And so like in Greek theater, it was like, okay, you're going to watch actors on stage do something and you're going to realize something about the world or something about yourself, even though you don't have to personally experience it, where you like learn something about society because you're watching other people act through what's happening in society. And I think that specifically like young people and specifically like high school is like a really good way to experience that. Because I think for a lot of people, like high school is the first time, or maybe even middle school, elementary school, school is the first time that you sort of start to figure out like the way that like society works, and you start to see like patterns come up in society. Because like in your family, you're like, oh, my family's whatever. But then you're like, okay, here's how like everyone else is relating to each other. And like, here's how broader society is. And I actually went to like a lot of different kinds of schools growing up. And definitely I learned a lot about like expectations and roles and, okay, why are people trying to get me to do this? Like, why are people acting like that? And so I think everyone has had that experience of like, maybe if not if you're homeschooled, but everyone who's like been to like a school kind of has the experience of like learning about how society works through school. And so I think watching someone else's experience of learning how society works through school is like a very accessible way to be like, oh, okay, I never thought about it that way. Like, I do remember stuff like this happening in high school, but like from my position, I wasn't paying attention to it, but these people were paying attention to it, and here's what they thought about it.
Okay. Alice. Yes, please.
Yeah, going off of what Zivia was saying, my character Candace and their character August go through this like conversation, and my character is kind of like pressuring them to tell people about things.
I caught that, you know, that,
and
yeah,
like a message that I feel like I'd really want to convey through the show is like, it's okay not to know. You should not feel pressured to know anything. And it's okay to go out of your comfort zone, and it's okay to experiment, and it's also okay to not know everything about yourself too. And like,
sure,
you know, I'm almost 15 and I still don't know everything about myself, even though, you know, I'm one to like labels. I have to keep reminding myself that they're not completely necessary either.
Right. Zivia.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that is completely true. And also, when rehearsing that scene, we were both like, this is the most fun thing ever. And I think it's partly because that scene is like the first moment August has of someone seeing like this thing they're hiding, being like, hey, that's cool, want to talk about it. And whether or not they choose to, they have that option there. And so it's very fun to be like, okay, there's a connection here. And that's very valuable.
You know, and I wonder if you've talked a little bit about, like, sometimes that's a good thing, right? Sometimes it feels good to have a friend see you and just, like, know you. But if the person isn't ready, then that can be really hard. So, like, is that part of the dynamic in the scene? Like, is August not there yet? And
they're not there yet, and it's a lot of August being like, I'm not talking about this, we're not doing this, but also a lot of like, you see me, you understand what's happening on some level, and it's good to know that you're there, even if I'm not ready to have this conversation.
okay, I like that. I like that takeaway. B, please.
Yeah, Charisse and I wrote that scene. Just we need a little extra space, and I think we wanted a moment where August wasn't incredibly panicked, because we were sort of noticing that at the end of every scene, August runs out and is frightened. They do also run out of that scene. But yeah, they're happy, and I think they feel a little better. And I think we wrote it in a way where it's like, as they were saying, sometimes that's a lot of pressure to put on a friend, but sometimes it's really nice to be like, hey, I see you. If you want to talk, I'm here. If you don't want to talk, I'm still here. Yeah. I'm just really happy with that scene.
I think it's important. I really do. And that's what I was talking about. Like, some of it just does ring so true. And it's not a generation I grew up in. We did not talk about anything. When I tell you nobody was out, nobody was out. Nobody was out. We'd see each other later in the bars or something. Yo. Like, always knew. And you tried to beat the shit out of me through high school. What's up with that? Been there? No, yeah. Mm-hmm. Gavin.
It's funny. Speaking of stories like that, I remember a situation that I was doing a job, because I'm also a performer, and there was a guy in the room who toxic masculinity. It wasn't a word decades ago,
right?
But I mean, he was the exact definition. And every woman that walked into the room, he had to take up all the space and yada, 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 all of that. And I'm just rolling my eyes. And I remember being at a gay establishment, and he comes up to me wearing a hoodie and goes like, and I'm like, dude, really though? Like, you put on this front in front of everyone, and you're here, and you want me to like keep
and you'd like me to be quiet about this?
And you like me to be quiet about it after you've like sucked all the air out of the room,
Oh, wow.
Being very sexist and toxic and all of that jazz. But I mean, I'm from a similar generation as you are, so
God bless you for that. But
I know about being, not out. But I think the takeaway, because of that, I think for me, the takeaway is that, and I just want to preface this by saying, like, we believe in affirming kids in every aspect. And so there are children who come here of all ages who get affirmed, in every way that they need to be affirmed. And I'm hoping that through this show that parents see, or people who may have family members or children of their own who are discovering their identity or curious about their identity or questioning about their identity, that they see that this is real and that it's hard and it's not easy for teens. And so that, or anyone, adults, that also too. But that when they get to a place to say, this is who I am, to be open enough to hear that. And that's what I'm hoping, that they walk away saying that maybe when my child speaks, or maybe when that cousin or that uncle speaks, that, I'm listening to what they're saying and not writing them off or calling them weird or making them feel less than. And I think what I preach through my cast is that trans rights is human rights. Gay rights is human rights. Like, at the end of the day, like, the show is fundamentally about equality. Like, you are allowed to be happy. You are allowed to take up space in the world. You're allowed to love who you love. And no one, your parents included, can stop you from doing that.
Right.
So that is, that is my takeaway. And that's what I'm always trying to uphold to them as we're going through this process. And when we're doing different scenes, and it's like, my hope is that some kid, it's like, I want to be that brave, or some mother or father or cousin is going, hey, maybe I should stop and listen, to my kid, or, so that's what I'm hoping. That's the biggest takeaway, because the kids are doing a lot of the work, and I think the adults really have to listen. And I think those of a certain age, understand that we did not always have those adults in our lives listening. And so it was tougher than what it is now. And so I'm glad to help create a space that someone can say, hey, this is who I am, and that they feel respected and heard.
And it's okay to be who you are today.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay for that to evolve. You know, I think one of the more powerful things, that the thing that is powerful is authenticity. It's the ability to be honest where you can and where that's safe. And that shines. It shines through. And your story may change. Your story may evolve. I've got lots of friends who said, I was an avowed lesbian until. Or I was so sure about this part of my identity, but then. And it's a big world. And it's okay. And, you know, I think it's important as you venture into the world and the queer community is sometimes we like to set up definitions too, right? Sometimes we're doing the same thing on the other side of the street. Like, which box do you fit in? You know, and how do you, and yeah, okay, well, human first. And then we can be expansive. And it's okay to be completely sure as well. Again, it's what you're authentic in, and it's where you are. And that's really what resonates. So I had one more please finish your thought, and I will hold mine. Alice.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. I just very much agree with Gavin, especially like, you know, kind of like I don't want to spoil the end. Just going off what Gavin was saying, I feel like I can even relate to that, even just being in this generation of like openness. I can still relate to not feeling safe and stuff. Like, you know, I knew this like really homophobic kid, and, you know, I felt like I had to. So, okay, sorry. I am a lesbian. I just wanted to say that straight out before I go into this. And for a while, I was still holding on to hoping to like men at some point, because I was in such an environment where, you know, you had to have a boyfriend, you gotta be this, you gotta think these celebrity men are hot, you know, and even just like I would make up crushes in my mind. And now being out of that environment, I feel so much more comfortable to sit and think about myself and be like, okay, you know I'm not this, and I'm comfortable with that, and I don't feel pressure to say anything else, say anything otherwise. So I really resonate with what he was saying. I just wanted to mention that.
And, you know, I guess that was sort of where I was going, is what is it like right now? Y'all are still in school mostly, yes. We're starting college. Is it like the play? 100%. Okay. Zivia.
For me, personally, at my school, absolutely not. Teachers are very understanding. We have all gender bathrooms as like the main bathroom in our school. Like, we are the only school in our city that has that. And that's awesome. Like, 3 other members in the cast also go to my school, so okay. It's not all bad, but as people were saying, this is the school for many people, but also for some of us, we are in a very accepting environment.
Okay. What about with other kids? Because I mean, when I look on, and what I read was, and help me learn, is this what's typical among other queer kids, or is this typical in general? Like,
I think there's a wide variation.
Okay.
Some of us definitely know the school, and some of us are in extremely accepting environments. And I think that it's...
Yeah, we're in the... Charles, we're back in the city. Back in the city. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Like I said, there's a wide variation. It depends massively on, like, the environment. I just want to say that there are some places for some of us where it's completely not like that.
Okay. Is bullying still a thing? Yeah. What does that look any different? Liam, does that?
I actually went to a few different kinds of schools, So I went to a middle school that was an all-girls middle school. That was a mistake.
Right?
And not a great place to figure out that you're not a girl, I guess. But like definitely there, like I guess it's different also depending on who you are, right? Because like there was an all-girls school and then an all-boys school across the street. Right. And like at the all-girls school, part of the dress code was like you can wear pants if you want. And so I was like, let me do that. But at the all-boys school, like you could not wear a skirt if you wanted, right? So like there's even like within like these unaccepting weird environments, like degrees that you can like push the envelope. And then I went to like a very big like public school, and there like there's like sometimes it's like you're rolling the dice. Like sometimes it's like active hostility from someone, and sometimes it's like actually you're just kind of causing me a problem and you're being annoying with who you are. And so it's like you never really know, at least in my experience, you never really know what you're getting based on like even if it's a student or a teacher, you're not sure. And then like you're not sure like maybe how they see you, because maybe they're like, here's a feminine boy and that's one way, or a masculine woman, that's a different way to treat you. And so I think like a lot of what's in the play is like really true in terms of like the way schools work. And then a lot of it I'm like, oh, I've seen that from this perspective or seen that from this other perspective. And yeah, bullying's still around. They hasn't gone out of style. They just keep updating.
I was hoping. Because I feel like there's more openness. I feel like there's room, at least among peers, you know, like we used to wait. We called it Finding Our Tribe. Do they still call it that? You know, we used to wait until college, usually. That's where you started to really find people you connected with, especially from a small town. And it just feels like that happens younger. So, like, I love that happens. But I imagine it's still school and kids are still assholes.
Yeah.
Like, right? Like, that hasn't really changed all that. Yeah.
I think for me, like, I was definitely able to figure out that I was trans earlier because, like, of the internet. Like, if I hadn't been on the internet, I would not have known that, like, you even could be trans.
Right.
And so in some ways, I was like, this is great. Now I know. Figured it out. But in a lot of ways, I was like, maybe it would have been better to live in ignorance, because I feel like once you know you're trans, you're like, now I want to be trans and do trans stuff. And then everyone around you's like, no, please don't.
Right.
And you're like, no, gosh. And so I think like in some ways it makes it really easy because you can be like, let me find other people. But then in other ways you're like, I'm just so aware of the predicament I'm in now. And like other people are also picking up on it, where instead of being like, oh, you're just kind of a strange person, they're like, I have my suspicions about you because I've heard about trans people before. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know how many people said duh when I came out? Just they were like, duh. We knew. And I'm like, well, thanks for, you know, hanging on with me. Right. Yeah, you just reminded me of a story. My daughter chose an all-girls high school, and she wanted a Sweet 16 party. And I'm like, I am an event planner. I'm like, And so all the invitations had gone out, and she came to me and she said, we have a problem. I said, what's our problem? She said, well, you know Nicole. I said, well, yeah, you guys went to zoo camp together. You went to museum camp together. You went to her bat mitzvah last year, or a couple of years ago. She said, yes. I said, well, what's the problem? She said, Nicole's living as Jason now. Now, I held my breath. This is a Catholic girls' school. I don't know what my daughter's going to say to me. And it's my job to support my kid, do you know? And I'm just like, going to be good at this. What's the problem? Is she going to disinvite Jason? Because she's embarrassed? Like, what? It's all going through my head. She said, we have to invite more boys. He can't be the only one. I said, you invite every boy you know. That is not a problem. And that's when I like really started to have hope. And she's 28 now. And so I feel like this has been, right, for a while at least, where y'all look at each other and go, okay, thank you for telling me who you are.
I just heard about someone who's a trans masculine person who's younger than me who's going to be going to this school. And I was like, oh no, don't go. And then, I don't know, I heard something else. And apparently like there's more trans people there now and it's okay and whatever. And I was like even flabbergasted. I was like, what, like 4 years, 5 years maybe? And already like,
wow,
it's better. And like, I was the only like queer person. And then I was talking to someone else who used to go there and they were like, oh yeah, like X, Y, and Z, like this person is also gay. And I was like, and no one else said anything. But I guess now it's like very different, even like within the past few years.
How do we, I just want you to think about this for a second. If you come up with anything, please let me know. Because it's a little different here, right? We're in something of a bubble in Philadelphia and in this area. I talk to people who are from the South, who are in Texas right now, who are terrified. And if anybody wants to speak about that, please. But like, especially in the trans community where trans kids are really feeling threatened in so many ways. I'm sorry. Alice.
Sorry, this is like really quick. I just wanted to mention my friend and her boyfriend both go to that school. So
there you go.
Yeah, I just wanted
That's
to mention that.
That's kind of fun.
It was, it's
right.
cool. They met there. They're both really cool. But yeah, her boyfriend also goes to that Catholic all-girls school and is trans. I don't know if he's out to everyone, but he's out to like his friend group.
Yeah. And I think that that's possible now. I don't know if it would have been when my daughter went, but I know that there were certainly lesbians who were out to one another in the school, and it was like, okay, cool. I don't, that was the one trans person I remember at 16, and they went to a different school. But even then it was like, okay, all right, well, this is what we need to do. And I'm like, invite boys, go ahead. Gavin.
Goes to your question about people in other areas. I grew up in South Carolina, born and raised there. And like you, finding my tribe. I didn't find my tribe until I left to come to Philadelphia to go to college because I knew that the only way that I could live as a black gay man comfortably is to be in a large enough city where no one knew me and I could just disappear into the ether.
That's what they used to tell us. Get to a city.
Exactly. And so as I've gotten older and all of the issues and things that are rising in our community because of laws and just ignorance and bigotry and all of that, part of me goes that running away isn't the answer.
Right.
And every time I go back home as out and as proud as I can be because I want some little kid, even if they only see me from across the street, to go, there's something different about that guy. And, and he's here in this environment, or there's a something, or he's talking openly about his partner, and that gives me hope. And I think visibility in those communities are important because I also too remember growing up. There was one, now looking back, I could say there was one trans woman in my small town and they were ostracized, like just treated like they didn't belong. But this woman was best friends with my mother. My mother had known them before they transitioned, and they remained friends, and so they were always around. And so for me, seeing that, and then also knowing that my homosexuality was a direct correlation to that at that time, just because people didn't, that put fear in me as a young boy. And it's like, if I'm going to be happy, then I have to leave, which is sad. Right. And I think a lot of kids, queer kids from small towns are like, you have to leave. And sometimes it's lovely places to be community-wise, but you just don't see yourself there or see enough of you there. And so I think part of it is us being braver and taking up space in those communities if we can. I know it's not always possible, but when we have the opportunity to do so, that visibility there is also important so that people don't flee to New York and Chicago and LA and everywhere else
and
Philadelphia and say that's where I need to be my authentic self, that they realize that they can be their authentic self anywhere. So that's kind of where my mind always go when I think about my own trajectory and where I am now and how I can make it better.
Yeah, I mean, was in Philadelphia for 30 years. I lived in the city for 30 years. That was, I would not have gone back. Now we're in a little town. Now we're in a small town, and I'm like, this is what it is. I couldn't have done that. I couldn't have done that. I could not have lifted my head and said, good morning to every neighbor that's walking their dog past. Some of them don't turn around at all, but most of them do. And the kids love our flags because there's one on each corner. I don't know that that would have been possible then, but it is now. It is now. So maybe you'll wind up back there. We have friends in Spartanburg, but they're terrified right now because just of all the legislation, and they're fighting, and they're showing up, and they're testifying, and so that's, we look at those things, and we certainly don't run away from the reality of them, but we look at them also, and look at the people who are standing up to testify, and slowly, and it is slowly, we're seeing politicians in some states. It's happened in Colorado. I think it happened again in Michigan, Iowa. One of them, where it was a surprise. Where a Republican legislator who was expected to vote one way said, I can't do that. I can't listen to these kids and their families and get involved in their health care. So it's happening, Don't ever think your voice doesn't matter. I want to thank you all so much for giving us this time. We will be at your final performance. So we're going to come on the 11th and cheer you on. Hopefully we can bring some folks with us. I sit with a group called Transway out of the William Way Center. And, so we'll put the invite out and see who wants to come, and maybe y'all can meet some of them, because a lot of them are in their 20s or early 30s and doing great and incredible things. And, it's really, sometimes that's energy. If we can give each other energy, and we can say, if it's crappy, it gets better. And if it's good right now, that's incredible. And share that with somebody along the way. Thank you all so much. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. What an incredible afternoon.
I know, my goodness.
Just when I pay less and less attention to alleged adults in this world, and more attention to the young people, because this is their world and their future.
It's true.
And I'm just inspired and honored that we got to come along for the ride.
Yeah.
LGBTQuiet is part of the 2022 Philadelphia Fringe Festival, and it will be performed at the Venice Island Performing Arts Center in the Manayunk section of Philadelphia, September 9, 10, and 11. We will link to the ticket information and the show details. This is a show for aged 13 and up. In the notes of this episode. Tickets are just $10. I hope folks will consider attending a performance if they are local and that's possible. Please consider supporting this important arts organization. Thank you for listening to Full Circle, the podcast. I am Martha Madrigal.
And I am Charles Tyson Jr.
Keep shining, y'all.
Bye. Full Circle is a Never Scared Productions podcast, hosted by Charles Tyson Jr. and Martha Madrigal, produced and edited by Never Scared, executive produced by Charles Tyson Jr. and Martha Madrigal. Our theme and music is by the Jingleberries. All names, pictures, audio, and video clips are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of their respective copyright holder.